go out to Colorado Springs, where every Thursday morning our old buddy Michelle Malkin joins us. Good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
When you're not on this program, you're oftentimes on the Sean Hannity program on Wednesday nights. And last night he had an exclusive interview with George Zimmerman where they talked, Michelle, about what happened that night. We want to play a little snippet for folks who did not watch the interview, where how George says since that night, that rainy night in February, he feels like his life is in jeopardy. Listen.
Do you feel your life is in jeopardy?
Yes, sir.
By the Black Panther Party?
Amongst others, yes, sir.
And you've had multiple death threats?
Yes, sir.
You know, look at what happened in this case because it became so public. Spike Lee is tweeting out what he thinks is your home address. The Reverend Al Sharpton and NBC News, you know, tries to use this case to bring up the issue of racial profiling. What do you say to Spike Lee, who didn't know the facts of the case, they hadn't been revealed? What do you say to Al Sharpton and those that rushed to judgment? What do you think their motives were?
I can't guess to what their motives are. I would just ask for an apology.
Well, what do you think? Do you think he's going to get an apology from those parties that Sean mentioned?
Oh, I doubt it. You know, these smears and the rush to judgment, the reckless playing of the race card have been disproved, not just by George Zimmerman's testimony here in this interview, but last week, of course, there was a report that the FBI had interviewed dozens of people and concluded with rather solid evidence that there was no racism on George Zimmerman's part when this very unfortunate and tragic incident occurred. I think it's also telling, of course, that the reaction to the interview, the reaction to merely having Zimmerman tell his side of the story has been more race card playing and not less. I think it's unfortunate that these death threats and the vitriol that the Zimmerman family has been met with will not be retracted, and there's not going to be an apology. And I think that's a really damning indictment of a lot of the culture.
Who's playing the race card and how in reaction to this interview that just took place last night already? Where are we seeing that? How are we seeing that?
Well, you can check my Twitter curation and aggregation site, Twitchy, where we monitored a lot of the immediate reaction after the interview. The attacks that Sean Hannity is receiving himself now and Fox News for airing the interview, especially, I think, are shameful given that a lot of the mainstream media had gotten so much of this story wrong in the first place. And of course, in a lot of the rush to cover this story, many mistakes were made, but there were a lot of mistakes that were not apologized for. And I think that's what George Zimmerman's getting at in that interview. And the whitewashing, I think, of things like these Black Panther death threats.
Okay, there's other big news happening as well, Michelle, of course, with the whole economy and the presidential election coming up the first week in November. And much has been made about the comments that the president made last Friday when he was visiting Virginia and said that the government played a big role in people's personal success and in small business, et cetera. Now there seems to be some pushback coming from surprising places. Like what?
Yeah, like John Lovitz, for example. Of course, he's the SNL Saturday Night Live alum who took to Twitter yesterday, and you can find this on our site as well at twitchy.com, and posted a picture of Barack Obama, and the caption read, the Nobel Peace Prize. You didn't earn that. Somebody else did that for you. And this is just a part of a massive social media pushback. I think that Obama certainly touched a nerve, and it's not just among us crazy conservatives and limited government types. There are a lot of independent small business owners who I think felt very aggrieved and insulted by not just the specific words that Obama used, but the larger ideological contempt and derision and ignorance that is shown by so many of these bureaucrats in Washington.
Is it a turning point in your mind in the election cycle?
I think it's the beginning of a turning point. I think that a lot of conservatives and Republicans shouldn't make the mistake that merely pointing out that Obama holds these views is somehow going to lock in the results of the election. I think that there are two main themes that need to be hammered away. It isn't merely his contempt for free enterprise and business people. It's the corruption that has marked the last 4 years and the redistribution of individual entrepreneurs and business owners' wealth to other businesses that are cronies of this government that didn't properly earn their money, their profits, and their success or failure, as in the case of so many of these crony businesses, as you've been talking about.
There you go. I saw on his website Mitt Romney now selling T-shirts, referring back to the Roanoke episode where the T-shirt says, "I built my business, Mr. President." Wonder how many people are going to be wearing those. All right, check out her websites, michellemalkin.com, where you can read all of her columns and whatnot, and twitchy.com, which is a social media aggregator. All right, Michelle, thank you very much.
Bye,
have
Michelle.
a great weekend.
You bet.
All
Take
right.
care. You too, guys.
So long.